this C5 Z6 first came out, it was basically the best Corvette to date. It mixed old school body styling and characteristics with a modern, potent powertrain, and to differentiate itself even further, it was not sold as a convertible. This is a fixed roof coupe. Welcome guys, this is Automotive Anonymous, and that's a C5 Z6 and what is probably my favorite color of any Corvette, yellow. And today I gotta review it for you to help you decide if this high-performance raw and unruly Corvette is maybe the best performance budget bargain car you can buy for around 20 grand, or if you should leave it at the lot and maybe look at the other used sports car competition. I'm gonna do a walk around, go through the specs, initial driving impressions, 0 to 60 on GPS, and then my final thoughts to help you decide what do you do with the C5 Z6. Do you buy it? Do you leave it at the lot? Well, big thanks to Twin Falls Chevy for letting me borrow theirs for the day. I'll link it below if you're interested. Otherwise, let's dive right in with this review. If you're new to the Chevy Corvette, you need to know that the C5, or this 5th generation, was produced for model years 97 to 2004. They were all assembled in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and this generation was the last one to receive the infamous pop up and down headlights. But if you were going to consider a base C5 about 25 years ago, they cost a pretty penny. They were about 40 grand, and then when the Z6 came out, it cost about 48 grand, which was an exceptionally shiny penny. But it wasn't until 2001 when Chevy blessed us with the Z6. This is the highest performing top trim level of the C5. When these came out, they made about 385 peak ponies. And then the next year, 2002 to 2004, they made a stampede of 405 ponies. Over the 8 years that the C5 was produced, Chevy actually sold almost 250,000 of them in total, but only about 34,000 of them were Z6s. And because they were pretty expensive, GM thankfully had softened its heart, and it offered an LS engine with a 6-speed manual and a rear-wheel drive configuration in another setup. That was the 4th generation, or the F-body, of the Chevy Camaro and the Pontiac Trans Am. The Camaro was nicknamed the Catfish. The WS6 was kind of the fancier version of that. I actually owned a Trans Am with an LS1. I did headers, an intake, a tune, and a few other mods just to make it a full bolt-on car. But I can say, if you're gonna keep it bone stock, this thing is where it's at. If you're gonna modify it, you should know that you do have options and you don't have to go the C5 route if you're gonna turn it into something other than what it came with. Either option is quite good. When these were brand new about 20 years ago, they had a rated quarter-mile time of 12.7 at about 113 miles per hour, which is pretty dang impressive for the time. Equally impressive was the 0 to 60 time of 3.9 up to about 4.5 seconds depending on the reviewer. But keep in mind, that was 20 years ago. It had a fresh set of tires. It was on a sticky drag strip. Numerous launches to get those times with probably cool air and a low density altitude. Today, in a couple minutes, I'm going to show you its 0 to 60 in none of those conditions to see what its real world results actually are. These are about 15 feet long, 6 feet wide, and 4 feet tall. The wheelbase is about 8.5 feet. It has about 5 inches of ground clearance, a final drive ratio of 342 with the 6-speed manual that this one has. It can do a full circle in 38 feet. And then it weighs about 3,100 pounds and has a payload capacity of 400 pounds. So you can hold 400 pounds worth of people or stuff in your C5 Z6. The last things to mention here is the gas tank is located right there on the driver's side. It's an 18.5 gallon tank. These are rated at 19 city, 28 highway, so if you can keep your foot out of it, your max road trip and range is about 480 miles. And then because it's a Corvette, it has a staggered stance with the wheel and tire setup. These came from the factory with Goodyear F1 Eagle tires, and the rear had the wider 295/35/18 with a 12-inch rotor, and the front had a slightly more narrow 265/40/17 with about a 13-inch rotor. And then this came from the generation of GM cars having a lot of character. So you have a physical key and remote keyless access to unlock, lock, trunk release, and panic button. The driver's side door panel on the C5 is huge. Look at how long that thing is. But it's actually held up really well for 20 years and almost 100,000 miles. It's all soft touch black materials. You have a lock, a handle, an air vent to cool down your arm if you need it, memory seats, mirror adjustments, all your door locks, mirrors, your big beefy handle, a Bose speaker, a free spider that comes with the car. Right now it's just chilling. And then if you decide to leave your door open, you have a reflector so no one knocks that thing off. Otherwise, you have a medium-sized Corvette emblem on the door sill. Rubber and metal pedals, dead pedal, hood release, trunk release, lighting stock, adjustment for the steering wheel, and fantastic yellow leather seats with Z6 stamped in up top. Sitting inside the Z6 is a really nice place to be. It's really comfortable. Lots of dark, soft touch materials that honestly have held up really well for being an old GM product. I don't see any cracking on the door panels or the dashboard. That's a problem that a lot of the F bodies had. This one, you can obviously tell, has been really well cared for. The horn actually sounds pretty good. I think it came right from the Silverado of the same year, more than likely. And when we fire it up, it roars to life. I'll show you what you can see on the center display. Otherwise, there's not much going on the wheel. It basically has the Silverado wheel with the 6 o'clock handle, which I really like. And then just all the old school ventilation, radio, head unit options, and then some storage options down here with a 12 volt, maybe a place to hide your cigarette ashes, traction control, passenger airbag off, and then side opening center console with the 12 volt and the gas door release. Otherwise, the shifter is very notchy, very mechanical. This is your reverse backup camera, and otherwise it's really nice. Not a whole lot going on the rear view mirror or on the roof, because this is the fixed roof convertible, so you can't take the roof off unless you do some serious surgery on this car. Anyways, let's turn it off and I'll show you the back. The rear of the Z6 looks awfully good, but it doesn't do much to distinguish itself from the base C5 other than the Z6 plate between the exhaust. But when you're back here, there's 3 main ways to open the trunk. You can either push the button that's on the dashboard, you can climb between the front seats, or just do what I'm gonna do. Use the button on the remote. You'll notice it lifts up. There's about 13 cubic feet of room back here, so even though it's the fixed roof coupe, it still is quite spacious. There's a little bit of storage behind each rear wheel well, and then a little bit underneath this plate right here with a fix-a-flat kit. Otherwise, it's easy to reach. It's easy to throw the trunk lid back down. Let's move on to the passenger side. Now, if you're fortunate enough to ride shotgun in the Z, remember, you have a nice big door panel. A lot of the same materials and amenities that the driver gets, but you'll notice there's no vent, and you only have your controls to lock and move your own window. Otherwise, Bose speaker, Corvette emblem on the door sill, manually adjusted seat, so the power seat is saved for the driver. Thankfully, my backpack doesn't mind. It's comfortable. The headrest is still stamped Z6, and you'll notice a little vent right here. Locking glove box. It's adequately sized with the airbag on and off switch, and then Corvette right on top of where the airbag would pop out with a nice grab handle in case your driver gets a little bit rowdy. But enough of the interior. Let's come around to the front. I'll open the hood and I'll show you what the LS6 engine looks like. Under the hood of the Z, you have a big small block, which is an overhead valve pushrod engine. It's the LS6. This actually started as the LS1 found in the base Corvette, the Camaro, and the Trans Am as mentioned earlier, but it has a different upper intake manifold, camshaft, and a few other goodies making more power. This one specifically, though, is a 2001, so it only makes 385 horsepower at 6,000 RPM, 385 pound-feet of the twisty stuff at 4,800 RPM, but it can rev out to about 6,500 RPM. And then if you get a 2002 to a 2004 model year, it makes an extra 20 horse, so 405 horse, 400 torque. But serpentine belt, alternator, it's all up top. All of your reservoirs, they're easy to find, easy to identify, so a lot of maintenance items on the top half of this engine are actually quite easy. You know what, guys? Let's drop the hood. Let's take it for a drive. Time for my favorite part. I'm gonna time travel and teleport you to one of my favorite roads, show you how it drives, and then we'll see how fast it is on our private road. Initial driving impressions of the C5 Z6. Even with traction control left on, I'm losing traction basically everywhere. The shifter feels very mechanical, very notchy. The steering is pretty heavy in this 22-year-old car. I like it a lot. Visibility is pretty darn good. being part of the C5 platform, even though it's a fixed roof convertible. I love that you can still access the back cargo area. The steering wheel is pretty cool. I wish maybe they added some red flare, colored out the Corvette emblem for the C5 Gen, but overall I can't complain too much. Visibility through the rear view mirror and the side mirrors are fantastic. When you have to get on the brakes, these 12+ inch rotors do a pretty good job. You can feel ABS kick on without even giving it full pedal. Then when you have to get back on the gas, a light launch, you can see our traction is not very good on this road. And it roars. It sounds fantastic. This LS6 is a really potent engine. It definitely feels a little bit more lively than even my full bolt-on LS1 did back in my Trans Am days. Of course, I've been driving a Miata for quite a while, so having almost 3 times the engine displacement, this was a really fun ride, and one that I've missed. The shifter, I really like how it feels. The seats are not overly aggressive, they don't hold you in place super well, but dang do they look good, and is my backpack having a fantastic time. All the yellow accents in here and being able to see the hood and the side mirrors just look really nice in my opinion. I definitely think that a yellow C5 is the way to go. But when you're just cruising, here, let's go over to 6th gear. It just cruises really nicely. It's quiet, but there are rattles. Honestly though, I drove a C7 about a week or 2 ago, and I think it was more creaky and rattly in the interior at only about 9 years old than this 22-year-old C5. This is such a good platform. You can do a lot with these cars, including, let's see how well it changes directions. So when you have to throw the wheel for any reason, yeah. Actually feels really tight. You could probably see on camera that the dashboard and the hood stayed relatively flat. But anyways, we're gonna do a 0 to 60. Keep in mind, going over to my private road, it's no better than what this one is. It's not gonna be a world-breaking time. There's gonna be a lot of wheel spin, but we're gonna have a good time. So, let's teleport to that clip. And true 0 to 60 came in at 6.56 seconds. There's no doubt you could easily shave off 1.5 seconds if we had an actual track prepped surface, some sticky tires, and a density altitude that wasn't 4,000 feet, putting this down on power 14%. I left traction on. You could see I still had to short shift 1st gear. There was tons of wheel spin, so it was not actually full throttle. Pretty impressive for what it is. Here's my final thoughts. My gosh, does the Z6 sound good, feel good, and look pretty dang impressive, especially with the pop up and down headlights. I know that 0 to 60 time was quite depressing, quite sad, but this has no traction, especially on a private road. Even at our density altitude, it's still making a lot of power, and it's just not in its environment. Sure, we could probably easily shave off 1 second with 5 more launches, 5 more practices, but this car doesn't belong to me. It's over 20 years old. I'm not really interested in blowing anything up today. So mid-6s is embarrassing, but it's what it gets when it's driving like it's on an ice rink. Anyways, this is a fantastic performance car. Get some wider, stickier wheels on it. Do some power mods, or just drive it in the simple bone stock elegance that it comes with. Any way you enjoy your Z6, you're gonna be having a good time. And it's also valuable to buy sports cars from manufacturers that are mainstream, high volume companies, because usually their sports cars run better. They're not some exotic that you can't find parts for. This probably shares 1/4 of its internals with something like a Chevy Silverado or other GM products. Between the wheel, the horn, the headlights, things like that. It's easy to manage, it's easy to maintain. But you know what matters, guys? What your thoughts are. So comment below, have you owned a Z6, maybe a C5, or an F-body LS1 car? I want to know all of it. Let me know your thoughts, opinions. If you enjoyed my video, like the video, help it get shared, help it to grow. Otherwise, I hope to see you on the next one. I post a couple times a week. You're welcome to subscribe. It's free. Otherwise, take care until the next one. See ya.